What if nuclear war did not arrive with heroism or victory, but with silent sickness and slow extinction? For decades, filmmakers tried to warn audiences not with explosions, but with fear. These films were hidden, banned, ignored, or quietly buried because they were too honest. Tonight, we uncover 10 disturbing nuclear war films you probably never saw, and once you do, you will never forget them. Number 10. The War Game, 1966. Before audiences ever watched mushroom clouds rise over cities, this film showed what came after. Not spectacle, not heroics, but administration failure, panic, and mass death. The War Game was made as a television film, yet it terrified government officials so deeply that it was suppressed for nearly 20 years. Shot in a brutal documentary style, the film simulates a nuclear attack on Britain using interviews, emergency drills, and staged casualties. There is no central hero. There is no escape plan. Firestorms roll through residential streets. Hospitals collapse under the weight of radiation burns. Authorities resort to mass executions to maintain order. It feels less like a movie and more like forbidden footage. What makes The War Game disturbing is not what it shows, but how calmly it shows it. Children die without music. Clergy lose faith on camera. Survivors are left blinded, starving, and hunted. The film treats nuclear war as a bureaucratic event managed badly by humans who never had a chance. The BBC considered it too horrifying for broadcast. Politicians quietly agreed. When it finally aired years later, it felt prophetic rather than outdated. This is not entertainment. This is a warning film that governments hoped you would never see. Number 9. Threads, 1984. If there is a single film that defines nuclear horror, it is Threads. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is relentless. The story begins in Sheffield with ordinary lives, ordinary problems, and ordinary futures. Then the bomb falls, and the film never lets you look away again. Threads follows the breakdown of society over decades. Food systems collapse, language degrades, education disappears. Children are born malformed and barely human. There is no recovery arc. Civilization does not rebuild. It simply erodes into something unrecognizable. The film uses cold narration and time jumps to show how quickly humanity loses its identity. Law becomes violence. Survival becomes cruelty. Compassion becomes weakness. By the final act, characters barely speak in full sentences. Culture itself has died. Unlike most nuclear films, Threads refuses hope. There is no final lesson, no moment of redemption. It ends in darkness with the implication that this is not the end of suffering, but its permanent state. Many viewers report physical reactions after watching it. Nightmares, anxiety, silence. Threads is not a movie you recommend lightly. It is a scar disguised as a broadcast. Number 8. Dead Man's Letters, 1986. While Western films focused on panic and collapse, this Soviet masterpiece focused on grief and guilt. Dead Man's Letters is set after nuclear war has already ended. The world is gone. What remains is memory. The story follows an elderly scientist sheltering in a ruined museum with a group of children. Civilization has failed. Nature is poisoned. Hope exists only in letters written to people who are already dead. The film unfolds slowly with long, quiet shots of ash-covered landscapes and decaying architecture. There are no explosions, no action scenes, only regret. The scientist reflects on humanity's arrogance and the belief that intelligence could control destruction. Children play games they barely understand. Adults pray to nothing. The film feels like a funeral for the 20th century. Its pacing is hypnotic and suffocating. It forces the viewer to sit inside despair rather than escape it. Dead Man's Letters was rarely screened outside Eastern Europe. It did not fit Cold War narratives of victory or resilience. Instead, it offered something far more disturbing: acceptance of extinction. Number 7. Testament, 1983. Most nuclear war films build toward the explosion. Testament begins after it. The war is never shown. The enemy is never named. What matters is what remains. A quiet American town untouched by blast but poisoned by fallout drifting invisibly through the air. The story follows Carol, a mother trying to maintain normal life as radiation sickness slowly dismantles everything familiar. Schools attempt to stay open. Neighbors hold community meetings. People reassure one another that help is coming. None of it matters. The sickness moves forward without drama or mercy. Children begin losing their hair. Pets die suddenly. Hospitals overflow with patients doctors cannot save. There are no riots or heroics. Only denial followed by grief. Funerals become routine. Playgrounds become empty. Radios stop broadcasting. What makes Testament so disturbing is its restraint. Death arrives quietly in bedrooms and kitchens. A child asks when things will be normal again. A mother lies because the truth is unbearable. The film forces the viewer to sit with loss instead of escaping it. There is no final speech, no lesson delivered to the audience, just a final image of a world where love exists, but the future does not. Testament feels less like a movie and more like a memory from a world that almost ended. Number 6. Miracle Mile, 1988. Miracle Mile begins like a romance and ends like a nightmare. A chance phone call wakes a man in the middle of the night. The voice on the other end claims nuclear missiles have been launched. The countdown has begun. What follows is 90 minutes of escalating panic as one rumor spreads across Los Angeles. No official confirmation arrives, no sirens sound. People must decide whether to believe the warning or dismiss it as madness. Highways clog. Gunfire erupts. Trust collapses. Every decision feels wrong. The film captures the unique terror of uncertainty where survival depends on information that may already be too late. Unlike traditional nuclear films, Miracle Mile unfolds in real time. The tension is unbearable because the audience never knows whether the threat is real. By the time confirmation arrives, it no longer matters. The final act is brutal and unforgiving. There is no escape route, no clever solution. Just realization. Miracle Mile does not warn about bombs. It warns about communication failure and human panic. This film vanished quickly after release because it offered no comfort. It ends exactly where fear always does. With silence. Number 5. When the Wind Blows, 1986. On the surface, this looks like a gentle animated film. A sweet elderly couple living in the English countryside prepares for nuclear war using government pamphlets. They follow instructions faithfully. They believe authority will save them. It will not. When the Wind Blows is devastating because of contrast. Cheerful music accompanies horrifying ignorance. The couple builds shelters incorrectly. They misunderstand radiation. They wait patiently for help that will never come. As sickness sets in, the animation grows darker. Colors fade, movements slow. The couple remains polite, hopeful, and obedient even as death approaches. The film is not about stupidity. It is about trust. It exposes the cruelty of official reassurance in the face of annihilation. The government pamphlets are useless. The instructions are lies. By the end, the couple clings to each other, whispering prayers they barely understand. The wind blows, fallout drifts, the world ends quietly. This is not a children's film. It is one of the most disturbing nuclear war stories ever made because it shows how easily good people are abandoned. Number 4. Special Bulletin, 1983. Special Bulletin disguises itself as live television. That is its most terrifying weapon. The film unfolds entirely through simulated news broadcasts as reporters cover a developing crisis in Charleston Harbor. A small boat carrying armed men claims to possess a nuclear device. Negotiations begin. Cameras keep rolling. There is no soundtrack, no cinematic framing. Everything looks accidental, unfinished, and dangerously real. Anchors interrupt one another. Reporters speculate on air. Officials refuse to confirm details. Viewers are placed in the position of citizens watching history collapse in real time. What makes Special Bulletin disturbing is how familiar it feels. Mistakes are made on camera. Information is wrong, then corrected, then wrong again. Panic spreads not because of the bomb, but because of confusion. No one knows who is in charge. As the standoff drags on, tensions rise. Military forces close in. Journalists debate ethics while broadcasting every movement. The possibility of catastrophe grows with every update. When the crisis finally ends, it does so without warning and without relief. The aftermath is even more chilling. News anchors attempt to regain composure. Language becomes empty. Casualties are discussed as statistics. Life continues because television demands it. Special Bulletin was so convincing that stations feared audiences would believe it was real. That fear was justified. This film reveals how nuclear disaster would not arrive with sirens, but with breaking news banners and calm voices trying to sound professional while the world ends. Number 3. Countdown to Looking Glass, 1984. Countdown to Looking Glass begins with diplomacy and ends with annihilation. Unlike other nuclear films, this one focuses on politicians, analysts, and military planners trying to prevent disaster. They fail. Set during escalating tensions between global powers, the film follows decision-makers as information floods in too fast to process. Intelligence is incomplete. Assumptions replace facts. Every choice closes another door. What makes this film deeply unsettling is its realism. Meetings drag on. Arguments repeat. Nobody wants responsibility. Leaders hesitate until hesitation becomes fatal. The countdown continues regardless of human intention. The film cuts between command centers and ordinary citizens unaware that their lives are being debated in secure rooms. There is no villain, no madman, just systems grinding forward. When war finally comes, it does not feel dramatic. It feels administrative. Missiles launch because protocols demand it. Retaliation follows because doctrine requires it. Humanity disappears beneath procedure. The ending is abrupt and devastating. No final words, no moral closure, just confirmation that everyone lost. Countdown to Looking Glass terrified Cold War audiences because it removed emotion from apocalypse. Nuclear war here is not hatred. It is paperwork, and that makes it unavoidable. Number 2. No Blade of Grass, 1970. No Blade of Grass imagines a slow apocalypse rather than an instant one. A biological disaster wipes out crops worldwide, leading to starvation, violence, and nuclear escalation. Society collapses not in fire but hunger. The film follows a small group attempting to escape the city and reach the countryside. Along the way, civilization peels away layer by layer. Law disappears. Morality erodes. Survival becomes justification. What makes this film disturbing is its cruelty. Innocents suffer without mercy. The group commits acts they once would have condemned. Every compromise leads to another. The tone is bleak and unforgiving. There is no safe haven, no redemption, only endurance. By the time the group reaches their destination, they are no longer recognizable as decent people. Released during a time of social unrest, the film was banned in multiple countries. Its violence and nihilism were considered dangerous. That reaction proves its power. No Blade of Grass argues that apocalypse does not make heroes. It reveals what people become when resources vanish and fear dominates. This film does not frighten with spectacle. It frightens by suggesting this transformation is inevitable. Number 1. Punishment Park, 1971. Punishment Park is not about nuclear war itself. It is about the world that exists when nuclear war becomes acceptable. That is what makes it the most disturbing film on this list. Made during the height of Vietnam War unrest, the film imagines a United States where political dissent is treated as treason. Suspected radicals are given a choice: prison or a brutal survival test in the desert known as Punishment Park. Those who choose the park are told they can earn their freedom if they cross a harsh landscape while being hunted by police. The film is shot like a documentary. Cameras shake. Arguments unfold naturally. There is no dramatic score. The cruelty feels improvised because it almost is. Actors were encouraged to argue freely, blurring fiction and reality. What connects Punishment Park to nuclear horror is its worldview. This is a society already at war with itself. Fear has replaced law. Authority has abandoned morality. Nuclear annihilation feels inevitable because humanity has already crossed the ethical line. As the film progresses, the survival test becomes a death sentence. Police escalate violence. Participants collapse from exhaustion and heat. There is no accountability, no oversight, only power enforcing itself. The most disturbing aspect is how plausible it feels. There is no science fiction technology, no future setting. Everything looks like it could happen tomorrow. Punishment Park argues that nuclear war does not begin with missiles. It begins when a society decides some lives no longer matter. That decision is already apocalypse. These films were hidden, ignored, or quietly buried because they told the truth. Nuclear war is not heroic. It is slow, cruel, and final. If these stories disturbed you, they did their job. History survives only when warnings are remembered.